Hello everyone and welcome to my April reading journal video. I know I mentioned in my last one that I wasn't sure what I wanted to call these videos. Some people call them wrap-ups and some people call them setups. I do like wrap-up, I think that's a good phrase, but my reading journal is not as much of a reading tracker or stats tracker, and it's definitely not a reading planner. Maybe just reading journal video is sufficient, but I'm not sure. If you haven't seen any of my videos before, some context for how I do my reading journal. It's more of what I would consider to be a diary style journal. I go back and I journal about each book that I've read in a month, and that's the extent of it. I don't do monthly TBRs in these videos or in my journal at all. I don't track any monthly stats or anything like that. I don't have any monthly goals or track any kind of like publication dates or author identities or anything like that. I really just go back and journal about my experience with each book. I have some spreads at the beginning that track some stats, I guess you could say, although it's more counting than actual statistics, but I don't go over these trackers in my videos. I'll definitely go over them at the end of the year, but for now, we just talk about each book that I read in each individual month. With that being said, these videos are really a series that go together, so if you want to follow my reading journal journey throughout 2024 and you haven't already, I recommend that you subscribe so that you can follow along throughout the months of my reading for this year. I subscribe to quite a few people who have reading journals and they post about them every month or every quarter, and it is so much fun to watch their journey throughout their year of reading. So if you want to follow along mine, that's how I recommend you do it. This month brings us the pink moon, which I could not resist referencing in this cover page. I went all out pink with this Marigona Suli Art sticker, and you'll see in a little bit that I use these little pink boxes from Papershire to write down which books I read this month. I tried to stick with more white space for this cover spread. I was really feeling like I needed a little bit of a spring cleaning vibe for this spread, so that's what we're going for. And like I said, I used this Marigona Suli Art sticker. I used a doily that I got in a package somewhere, and then some papers from Journal Say and some old books. Actually, I think this little paper is not from an old book. I think it's like a printed, it's supposed to look like it's from a book, but I think it's just like printed paper I got from Amazon. This month I read 7 whole books, which I'm really happy about. I started my new job on April, I think 22nd, if I remember right. And so I was really having this like push at the end of my time off to read as much as I could before starting my new job. It's such a strange feeling. I'm sure that you've noticed probably that I'm not doing these videos at the time that I was reading. Like, I didn't film this video right after April. I filmed this video a couple of weeks ago, actually last week probably, and it is currently the middle of October. I didn't decide until about late May, early June of this year that I even wanted to do a reading journal like this, but I knew that I was early enough in the year that I could go back and journal about the books that I read. I decided to go back to the beginning of the year and journal from there rather than starting at the month that I was in. The interesting thing about that, though, is that I am currently sitting in the midst of the fall season, my absolute favorite season, my birthday month, all of those things, and having to think about the spring, which is so weird. And I have Halloween nails going on right now, obviously not in the video, but as soon as I finished filming these spreads, I went and did my nails in a Halloween theme, and I have more Halloween nail ideas coming, and I'm interested to know if that would be ridiculous in my May video to have October themed nails. I will probably try to avoid doing that because it just seems a little silly. My nails aren't looking great in any of these videos, and I love having cute nails and stuff, but for these journal spreads, I just haven't done my nails in a few weeks. I don't know. It's just, that's what happened. So I don't know. Maybe as I get caught up with where I'm at, my nails will be done in more videos, but don't look at them right now. Do not perceive the nails. To wrap up this really simple cover page spread, I used some butterfly stickers from a pack from Michaels, this grid washi tape from Amazon, and then these letter stamps that I think are also from Amazon. But that's pretty much it. It looks nice and clean, I think. Moving on, I'm going to flip over to the first book spreads of this video, and I'm going to go over the first 2 books that I read in April. These two books go together in a series, and one of them is a reread for me. This is the Love Light Farms series by B.K. Borison. The first book, called Love Light Farms, was a favorite romance of mine that I read in 2022, and I really just got the urge to reread this because I was looking for a good romance. I had read a couple of dense books the month before and one really bad romance, so I was looking to read one that I knew I would love and that would be a pretty quick read for me. Love Light Farms is about a girl named Stella who owns a Christmas tree farm on the Eastern Shore in Maryland. She's losing a little bit of money on her business and things are very disorganized for her, and she enters into a social media competition to win $100,000. In her application for the competition, though, she lies and says that she bought the farm with her boyfriend because she thought it would make the story seem a little more romantic. However, when she does get contacted that she's a finalist in the competition, she ends up needing to find a fake boyfriend pretty quick. She asks her best friend of 10 years, Luca, to be her fake boyfriend, and from there, it's a friends to lovers romance. There's the competition going on, there's a fake boyfriend aspect going on, but there's also a little mystery going on of some strange things happening on the farm that they're having to solve as well. And you can see a little spoiler on the right there. The next book that I read is actually the third book in the series. I read the second book last year. This is the third book in the series called Mixed Signals, and I'll talk about that one next. So upon reread, I will say that I didn't find myself as interested in the competition or the mystery aspect of the book. I was really just interested in the romance, and I wonder if I could see myself or see someone else feeling that way on their first read of this book, but I'm not quite sure. It was still a really solid romance for me though, and one of the only friends to lovers that I've ever loved, although I haven't read very many of them that aren't also some sort of second chance romance, which I really, really hate usually, so maybe that's why I haven't found a ton of friends to lovers books that I like. I may be on the hunt though, because maybe I need to find some that are strictly friends to lovers and not some other trope that goes along with that. For this spread, I am using a Christmas themed sticker sheet from Artimation Co. on Etsy, and I'm using these circular paper ephemera from Journal Say, and then this Christmas themed paper from an Amazon paper pack. One thing that I really love is that Luca and Stella are best friends, and that really reminds me of how my husband and I are. We didn't start out as best friends or anything. We definitely met each other and pursued dating pretty quickly, but we definitely became best friends along the way, and a lot of their interactions and support of each other, even in a platonic way, reminds me of my husband and I. Oh, there's Pebbles, the cat, doing some cute little... Oh, and you can hear her in the voiceover as well. She's playing in a box. Okay. This is a very interesting coincidence that's happening right now. Anyway, I will quickly go ahead and talk about the second book so that I can give some context for the third one. I read the second book last year. It is a book called In the Weeds, and it follows the farmer that works for Stella on the Christmas tree farm, Beckett, and his romance with the girl who runs the social media competition, and her name is Evelyn. I didn't like that book as much, although I'm looking at my Goodreads rating right now, and I did give it 4 stars. I don't know why. I didn't have my rating system pinned down as much last year, so I guess that's why. But I did not love that one as much, and I thought the reason behind it was maybe because Evelyn is not from the small town and her job is on social media, which I don't really love reading about as much. So I figure once I got to the third book, things would be on the up and up, because this third book, Mixed Signals, follows Layla, who is a baker at the bakehouse on the property of Love Light Farms. So Layla works with Stella, and this is her romance story. You kind of get the vibe for this romance in the first book when you're introduced to Layla and her love interest named Caleb, who is a police officer with the local tiny little sheriff's department that has like 2 people in it. So I'm thinking small town baker, small town cop romance just sounds really fun and super cute and a little spicy, so I was really excited for that. Little did I know that randomly at the beginning of this third book, I don't think this is going to be a spoiler, because if I had known this going in, I think I would have been happier reading this book. Caleb is not a police officer in this one. He just randomly changes careers completely and becomes a high school Spanish teacher, which, I mean, no, there's no shade at all to a high school Spanish teacher. I'm sure that's fantastic and like a perfectly fine romance to read. I just did not expect that. And it changed the vibe for some reason very drastically in like a very weird way. I don't know. It just made it very different than I expected. I think it's good that I just come out and say I did not like this one at all. I gave this one 2 stars. I should say I gave the first book in the series 5 stars the first time. I went ahead and gave it 5 stars this time as well, just because I loved it. I don't really go and change my ratings too often if I do a reread. This one, 2 stars for me. I just did not like it. And the other thing I wanted to mention about not liking it was a notable aspect of all of these books is that people treat Layla's baked goods as if they are actual drugs. Like, I'm not even kidding. It is shocking overkill to the point where you're like, there's something wrong with these people. And it's not like Gilmore Girls where there's like Rory and Lorelai are 2 people who love sweets and they have an obsessive, nature about the sweets that they eat and stuff. But this is like, this entire town is weirdly obsessed with Layla's baked goods, and it gets to the point where they are talking about it in the bedroom. Like, we are in intimate sex scenes and we are like erotically talking about like thumbprint cookies. And I think it's supposed to be cute, but it made me so uncomfortable, and I just didn't like it. Yeah. And honestly, those 2 things are not the only reason I didn't like it, but those were like kind of the standout aspects of it. But the storyline itself also just wasn't 100% really my vibe. They were fake dating for the purpose of giving each other pointers on how to date better, because both of them had semi-bad luck with dating and they were just trying to help each other, I guess. But it was very clear that Caleb was interested in her for dating and she was trying to not be interested in him. I'm not 100% sure why. I don't remember that aspect of it, but I don't know. It wasn't for me exactly, and it didn't feel like there was enough kind of conflict of like giving me a realistic reason why they couldn't just date for real. So yeah, I don't know. Just not for me, but I still kind of recommend the entire series because a lot of people love it, and I love the first one, and a lot of people love all the rest of them. So I still recommend the series if you are interested in that type of romance. So moving on, we are going to be talking about 2 very different books from the 2 books I just talked about. We are going to talk about some sci-fi now. The 3rd book that I read in April is Artificial Condition by Martha Wells. This is the 2nd book in the Murderbot Diaries series. This follows Murderbot, who we met in the first novella, but Murderbot is now away from the humans that were introduced in the first book and now going to find some answers for the mystery that was introduced also in book 1. There is a new character named Art, who is a computer system on board some type of research transport vessel, and I think that's all I can probably say that would keep this review free of spoilers. I thought this was a really nice follow-up to All Systems Red, which was the first book in the series. Art was such a perfect addition to the story and provided a necessary companion for Murderbot, and also gave a character with a more human edge that you could really sympathize with. It was so cute how Art loved Murderbot's soap operas, but would get emotionally invested in them and need to be comforted when anything would happen to any of the human characters. Their friendship pretty much carried the whole story for me. I love that this is a really cozy novella series, but it still has this underlying mystery and sort of this action aspect to it that keeps the plot a little more exciting. And I guess sort of unrelated to the story itself, but the hardcovers of these books are so beautiful. They look so cool on my bookshelf that I get so excited when I see them. So I guess that aspect of it is really nice as well. Book number 4 for the month, you can see the book cover here on the right, was Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This book was recommended to me by someone that I used to work with, and she really loves action-packed stories, whether that's movies or books, either one, and this was one of her favorite series that she's ever read, and so I found it at a book sale and decided to pick it up because I had heard her recommend it. We don't have really the same reading taste, but I just thought it might be fun to read one of her favorites. So Red Rising is about a character named Darrow who lives on Mars. He is a member of this color-coded society, and his color is red. The people in the red group are more of the lower working class people, and the men in this group typically work in a sort of mine situation underground, but they also live underground. So all of these people in the red portion of society are thought to be preparing the surface of Mars for eventual settlement by the rest of human society. In return for this really hard work that these people do, they're promised a better life in the future for themselves, or at least for their children and future generations. However, pretty early on in the book, Darrow discovers through really horrific circumstances that this is all a lie, and humanity has already reached the surface many generations ago, and these huge futuristic cities exist on the surface, and all of these people have been kept underground as workers that benefit the ruling class people. In response to that, Darrow sort of unwillingly decides to compete in some kind of Hunger Games-esque competition in an effort to sort of bring down the higher classes from the inside. I want to pause here and mention, yes, I do know now that I misspelled artificial condition. I, for some reason, cannot spell artificial. I don't know why, but in my mind, it needs an E there, and it's an I. So I don't know. I'm just going to leave it. There's nothing I can do about it now without ripping that up and, I don't know, making a mess. So I'm just going to leave it, but I do know that I misspelled it. So hopefully that doesn't bother you too much. Back to Red Rising, I mostly listened to the audiobook for this. I do have it physically, but there was just something that was keeping me from wanting to pick this up. Maybe just the fact that it's not in my normal genre of interest, but the audiobook was surprisingly very good, so I'm happy that I went that route. I think the story, though, was maybe just okay. Although I did find myself thinking about it a lot after I finished the story, which was pretty surprising because, like I said, I think the story was pretty meh to me, but I don't know, I thought about it a lot afterwards, so I can see why other people really do like this story. One of the things I really liked about this story was that Darrow felt like someone who had nothing to lose when he was going through this process. He was making decisions or going along with certain things regardless of the fallout of these actions. He was committed to the aspect of being essentially part of the rebellion from almost the beginning of the story, and I felt like that gave it a sharper edge than other teen dystopian stories. A notable difference between this book and other teen dystopian stories, sort of like the Hunger Games, is that I would say this first book in the series is really just the setup to the future competition that will take place. The competition does not actually happen in this book. This book is more the preparation part, the training, the processes that Darrow needs to go through to even be accepted into this type of competition, because it is more for the elite. I still think that this feels like a complete story though, and that doesn't necessarily take away from the book itself. I gave this book 3 stars, and I think I'm pretty satisfied with the first one. I don't feel enticed to pick up the rest of the series, but I'm happy with what I read and don't feel like I really need to figure out what happens the rest of the time, if that makes sense. I'm pretty happy with book 1. For this spread, I used these adorable kitty cafe stickers from Lollipop Studios on Etsy, and all of the ephemera around is from different places. So the papers are from Journal Say, I have the grid washi from Amazon again, and then a lot of these sort of beautiful brown fall landscape washi tapes are from Simply Gilded. The frames that I have behind the book covers are also from Journal Say, and then I have those colorful dots from Amazon. And lastly, for the book titles, I used a distress ink in like a dark brown color, and the wooden stamps that like I said, I think those are from Amazon. And then I used the silicone stamps for Red Rising. Those are from Michaels. I don't know if I've ever mentioned these in other videos, but these like craft paper star rating stickers, I just made myself on my computer and printed them out on a craft paper sticker paper from Online Labels. And moving on, we are going to a totally different vibe than the last spread. We are going to be talking about some summer romance that I read in April. I was getting very excited about summertime at this point, so that's what we went with. The 5th book that I read in April was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Just for the Summer is about 2 characters, one named Justin and one named Emma, and Justin posts on Reddit talking about his curse with dating. So Justin thinks that he is cursed with every person who he dates. After they break up, that person ends up marrying the next person that they date. Emma reads this post and is shocked by the fact that she found someone online who has the same experience that she does. So everyone that Emma dates ends up marrying the next person that they date after her. She ends up messaging Justin, and they come up with the idea to date each other for the summer, and then hopefully when they break up, they will both find their soulmates. And of course, this is a romance novel, so things happen and they fall in love at the end. So I thought this was very cute. This is actually the third book in the Part of Your World series, and I would say that this is probably my favorite one out of the whole series. I love that Justin and Emma meet on Reddit. It feels very silly and modern, and in classic Abby Jimenez fashion, there is a lot more in this book than just romance. Justin's situation with his siblings felt real and relatable, and it was really sweet to see how much he cared for them but wanted to care for himself as well. He felt saddened by his situation. Emma's experience with her mom also felt really relatable. I have seen friends of mine who have had very similar experiences with their mothers. I love the little twist in this book. If you read the other ones, there's this little twist that is very satisfying to read if you're interested in the characters of the whole series. But I gave this book 4 stars. There are a couple of very glaring problems that I have with this book, and I don't know how to explain them without spoiling anything, but I think I'm going to go ahead and say them, and you can mute the video if you don't want to hear them. I would say that they're not super spoilery, but if you want to mute it, I will put up on the screen while I'm talking about those things, and it'll come off the screen when I'm done. The first issue that was less egregious was that Justin would give Emma these surveys before and after dates to, before dates, figure out what she's interested in doing, and then after dates, she would take surveys to sort of rate her experience of that date with him. And if a guy ever did that, I would feel like some sort of test subject in an experiment, and I just did not like that feeling. It gave me a little bit of the ick. Secondly, and my biggest issue, and the biggest reason why this book is 4 stars and not 5, is that the author decided to bring back Neil, who is the abusive ex-husband of one of the characters of a previous book, and almost give him this weird redemption arc. And her excuse in interviews and stuff was that she wanted to burn his house down, so his house burns down in this book, but it's almost written in a way where you feel sorry for him, or almost like the author wants you to feel sorry for him, but I don't. It's like an odd redemption situation, but with no real work being done on page to show that he took any kind of accountability for what he did and tried to make it up to the people that he actually harmed. So that dropped the rating down for me. Other than that, though, I had a really great time, and I do really recommend this book. I will quickly try to talk about the second to last book that I read in April, which was Give Me a Sign by Anna Sortino. This book is about Lila, who is part of the deaf community, and she goes to be a counselor at a deaf and blind summer camp. This was a really cute YA romance / coming of age story. It's focusing on deaf characters, so there's a ton of representation, including a wide range of people just within the deaf community. So I loved that I was able to learn a lot about Lila's experience with hearing loss and how she doesn't feel like she fits in with the hearing world or the deaf community. Her parents really push her to try to fit into the hearing world as much as possible, so they don't emphasize sign language in their house, and she's not fluent in sign language, but she also can't hear perfectly, obviously. And so she just doesn't feel like she fits into either world. I think the plot was a little too meandering at times, and it would go from being a fun, silly time at summer camp to a really serious, stressful situation at the drop of a hat. I could see that this is probably very realistic for people who experience ableism, but I think it still felt jarring and out of place as a reader, especially for a YA romance. And then on the coming of age side of things, it felt like the reader wasn't really guided on what aspects of Lila's reactions to things were we supposed to agree with and which ones were supposed to be learning experiences. None of the conflicts felt like they had a real scale for the reader to understand how upset they were supposed to be on behalf of Lila versus how much you were supposed to be realizing that maybe Lila has a lesson to learn in this situation. With that though, this was a really solid 3-star YA summer read with a gorgeous cover. For decoration for this spread, I used the Golden Hour sticker sheet from Artimation Co. on Etsy, and then I also used some printable stickers from the Mochi Bujo Patreon page, and I also used some gorgeous washi tape from Simply Gilded, obviously my favorite. And last but not least, I'm going to do a nice big double page spread for the 7th and final book that I read in April. I used these fantastic sticker sheets with a disco theme from Mushie Works, and I am absolutely head over heels with how this spread turned out, so stick around if you want to see the end. This one might be my favorite spread that I have ever made. I just love this sticker sheet so much. So book number 7 and the final book I read in April is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I got lucky enough to get this from the library. I was able to swoop in and grab it as soon as it came out, and I read it in a day so that I could give it back to the library so someone else could read it. Emily Henry is actually not an auto-buy author for me, so I like to pick up her books from the library if I get the chance, and then if I find it at a book sale or a book trading event or something, I'll buy it. Maybe I would buy it at full price if I really loved it, but enough of her books have been misses for me that I don't mind just not buying them right off the bat. I don't mind waiting. And also some of the ones that I do own, I bought in paperback, but she's one of the only romance authors that comes out with hardcover first and then waits an entire year before the paperback comes out, which I'm not complaining about. I think that is awesome that a romance author is successful enough to justify coming out with a hardcover, because pretty much every other genre gets that benefit, and romance is like the one that is only allowed to come out with paperback right away. So I love that she's able to do that, but I don't always jump on the opportunity to buy her hardcovers right away. I'm also throwing in these basically like pet tape, plastic type sticker doilies from Journal Say. I thought they would be a really nice layering thing. And then I have some washi tapes from Amazon and these circular papers from Journal Say as well. Funny Story is about Daphne and Miles. Daphne at the beginning of this book is engaged to a man named Peter, who the night before their wedding, on the night of his bachelor party, he comes home and breaks up with Daphne because he realizes that he has been in love with his best friend, who happens to be the girl that he told Daphne not to worry about, right? And her name is Petra, and they break up. He breaks off his engagement with Daphne to pursue a relationship with Petra, who also breaks up with her boyfriend Miles to pursue this with Peter. This leaves Daphne without a place to live because her and Peter live in the same house, but Peter is the one who put his name on the deed, and they are living in his hometown. So she's essentially homeless in a place that she's not from, and she needs a place to stay. So she goes to the only place she can think of that would potentially have an opening for her to live in, which is Miles's apartment. So she and Miles become roommates and deal with their collective heartbreak together, and it's a love story. There's fake dating in this book because Daphne spontaneously lies to Peter, saying that her and Miles are dating, and so now they have to fake it to keep up the lie. I thought this was a really fun and clever way to start off a romance novel. It almost had this like nostalgic rom-com movie vibe, very quirky and not overly serious. The story felt quick and easy and relaxing. It wasn't overly simple or boring. There was enough going on that kept me moving forward. There was this countdown to when Daphne would be able to leave because she doesn't want to quit her job right away. She works at the library and she has this big event that she's the one spearheading, but once the event is over, she plans to leave her job and move back to her home state. That really gives the story momentum because as Daphne and Miles start to have feelings for each other, it's also becoming closer and closer to the date that Daphne's looking forward to, and she's going to be moving out and going home. This type of romance between two people who don't know each other and they have some sort of meet cute or an introduction to each other in the story and they grow into a type of relationship is just my absolute favorite type of romance. I really am all about enemies to lovers, and as you saw, I enjoyed the friends to lovers that I read this month, but at the end of the day, I love just a good old we meet in this book, we fall in love in this book, and that's it type of story. I absolutely hated Peter, Daphne's ex. I hated him with a passion, and I would have loved to see this like massive comeuppance for him where he just feels humiliated. There is a bit of a comeuppance, if you want to say, and I really did enjoy that, but I could have even used more. I could have used like a real embarrassing scenario. I don't know. It just would have been really nice, but there is enough karma in there that it's satisfying. The only thing I didn't really love, and the reason why this is a 4-star and not a 5-star, is the third act breakup felt like an emotional roller coaster. It felt like there was a really extreme reaction on Daphne's part, and I was like, oh, this is, a dumb reaction. But then when you do learn more about the situation, there actually is something that I would have been pretty upset about if my partner had done it. But once Miles explains it to her, she's very quickly forgiving. So it feels like this whiplash where you're like not on her side and then you're really on her side, but then she forgives him so quickly and easily that you're like not on her side anymore. It's a little bit too much whiplash. So I didn't really love that third act breakup aspect of it, but other than that, overall, I really liked this story, and it was a pretty high 4-star for me. I don't know if I'll reread it, but maybe someday. We'll see. And that, my friends, is everything that I read in the month of April. I'm pretty happy with 7 books. That feels like a really productive and yet comfortable pace for me. So definitely a happy reading month for me. And of course, I love reading romance, so I'm glad I got a lot of that in. And yeah, so I'm excited to get started on May. But before that, I'm going to show you a little flip through of all of the spreads that we made today in this video. Also, I want to apologize for all of the lighting changes that happen in this video, and all of my videos are going to have slight changes like that because I film these over multiple days at drastically different times of day, just because I only film when I can, when I have time, obviously. So that's how that ends up. I find that I am really happy with every spread that we did for the month of April. I don't have any duds, so I'm really happy about that. And that is everything for this video. So I hope to see you all in my next one for May, where we will have 8 books to talk about, some really fantastic ones and maybe a couple not so great ones. So I'm super pumped to talk to you about those books, and I will see you when that one comes out. Bye everyone.